Hello and welcome everybody to the 5th episode of the Tommy Foundation Vlog. My name is Richard Everts. I'm co-founder and vice president of the Tommy Foundation. And joining us today is the president of the Tommy Foundation, Sugey Cruz-Everts.
Hi everyone.
And here she is, so take it away, Suge.
Sort of the big rise in the numbers for autism didn't really happen until probably like 1995 until 2005. That's like the big sort of like rise in the autism numbers. So those kids are finally starting to hit adolescence and soon will hit adulthood. And with that comes a lot of issues. Principally, some of the issues, obviously the first one that they're going to have to deal with is puberty, which no one really is looking forward to, I'm sure. It's a very difficult time for a lot of parents to talk to anybody about in general, regardless of sort of the developmental progress of their children, let alone if your child might have some developmental challenges. I think understandably, and especially the more severe your child might be, the more complex it is for you to get a straight answer about how you can help your child. So if your child is more severe, it might be a little bit difficult for you to sit them down and explain to them that this is a completely normal process and for them to understand what's going on in their body. Obviously, even if you do have more severe kids, that's something that you should definitely do. One of the things that the biggest sort of lesson that you should always take is that you should always assume intelligence when you're working with these kids. A lot of times they really do understand what it is that you're saying to them. So definitely be empathetic, be that voice for them, and stay chatting with them. But that's definitely an area that a lot of parents are going to first face and kind of like, oh, what do I do now? But the next thing is an overall understanding for these children about that there seems to be an indication from a lot of the psychological studies, which you can kind of take sometimes with a grain of salt, but in this case I think that they might be accurate, that these kids start to develop a larger understanding that they just don't really fit in quite as well with their peers. And obviously that's a huge generalization about the whole spectrum. Obviously, again, that's going to be different depending on how severe the child is. But as a general sort of ballpark measure, that tends to be the age where you finally start to really see like, wow, I may not be experiencing the same kinds of emotions, or if I am experiencing the same emotions, why can't I understand it as well? Or like, why are kids being a little bit awkward around me? Those kinds of, they start to understand that a little bit better. I think the other big one, and I didn't see this in any of the studies, but it's just one of the ones that I've just realized in working with some of the moms lately, is that your kids are getting bigger and stronger. And for a condition where, depending on the study that you're looking at, 80 or 85% of marriages are ending in divorce, and a lot of times it's, a single mom in the household, or, a grandma kind of working with these kids. It's a little bit difficult if you have, 4 out of every 5 kids who's autistic is a boy. This strapping young lad sometimes is, bigger and stronger than you are, and you're the one that has to figure out, how to control them and how to, have them take their medicine and have them be on these special diets and just have them not walk out the front door. Sometimes that can be a huge challenge. So it's another one. The fact that the public school's responsibility for your child ends at age 22. And that's upped, obviously, from other kids, but after age 22, it's one of those things where the public schools will no longer kind of give you that like break during your day to help you figure out sort of a way to work with your child. And so it's what other programs and services can I really tap into? And then really, I think in general, and I know that everybody really needs support, but in talking to a lot of the different families, one of the biggest things that they're finding challenges with is finding support groups. They find the support groups amazing, that they are a member of, but finding support groups that specifically talk about the challenges that they're facing with their older autistic children. They might spend, a day talking about puberty, but, when you're living through it, you might need more than just a day kind of talking about those issues.
Let's say that you have somebody lower on the spectrum. higher on the spectrum, it could be a totally different issue. But let's say you have somebody mid on the spectrum and lower on the spectrum. What's the difference between boys and girls, and what do you think you need to really focus on?
I think that there's a lot of different, I mean, again, it depends on the issue that you're looking at.
Okay.
So let's, focusing, let's say first on puberty.
Sure.
That's actually one where I feel a little bit, there's not often many times that I feel better about having a boy on the spectrum than a girl on the spectrum, but I think that honestly that's one of the times when I kind of feel a little bit better about having a boy on the spectrum than a girl. Puberty is a very confusing time for kids in general. You don't understand what's going on with their body, but for a girl, you have to deal with actual concrete physical changes, on a very timely basis. The fact that, what you're doing is going to possibly have very serious consequences. Not that it doesn't for boys, but, if you kind of have a boy in mid and lower on the spectrum and he's in a controlled environment, he's in a controlled environment and there's something you can do. But I mean, there's a lot of issues that understandably parents have about their children on the spectrum in general. But I think one of the moms that we've worked with lately, it's a big concern for her. She herself had suffered in her life, and that's something that she's concerned about happening for her daughter. And she's afraid that because her daughter is nonverbal, which they're currently stating that probably about anywhere from a third to a half of all children who have the ASD category now, the diagnosis, are very nonverbal. Mm-hmm. So it is still a big percentage of those kids, even those obviously aren't the ones that we hear about on a day in, day out basis. But if you have a child who's on the spectrum and they're nonverbal, and as it is, you can't communicate to them too much about these changes that are happening. There's the flip side of they can't tell you, if something's going on at school, if something's going on with someone that you trust. We hear about these things on our news. We hear it on a day-to-day basis, regardless of how your child is. And I think that's certainly a concern. It's sort of like a taboo thing that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I think that's like what the main issue is, specifically with the topic of puberty. I think it's kind of like one of those taboo things that I remember when I was a child, I didn't feel comfortable really talking to my mom about. And each family obviously is...
I didn't either, by the way, talking to my mom about it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not something that you really feel comfortable talking to people about. Teenagers tend to feel pretty awkward on a whole. And so you have this issue, and then on top of it, you have other issues, and you have a lot of people not being able to relate to their emotions. And that's really where I feel that sort of the support groups really come into play. I wish there's got to be parents, and this is something that one of the moms that I had actually spoken to over the phone had reiterated to me, is there's got to be, I can't be the only person with a 16-year-old autistic boy in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like, where are you? Like, there's got to be other people that understand what I'm going through, and there's a frustration that, I go to these support group meetings and it's great, and like I'm pepped up for like about 5 minutes, and then I go home and I realize that everything I learned at that support group meeting, really, I can only apply maybe like a quarter of it because my kid's either, too old for some of those things, or, the issues that I'm dealing with are just so much bigger than that I can't really get to the core. Obviously, if you're a viewer out there who has an older child who's on the spectrum, definitely contact us. We do have at least one or two moms that currently are looking for other families to maybe start a support group to start talking about some of these issues. We would love to sort of start something like that.
Okay.
Definitely. But I mean, puberty I think would be one of the big areas.
Thanks a lot for joining us for the 5th episode of the Tommy Foundation Vlog, and we'll see you next time.